do have
Just the only kind of question I have, I have no problem with this, but do we have to do it this early? Because I'm sitting here, everybody said yes, because it's kind of like, are we building the budget off of this, or do we build the tax rate off the budget?
See, this is.
So that was my question. I got my answer.
So water sales are down 10%, and we got to complete some projects. Payrolls going up, costs are going up. Water rates are going to be probably what's the same. Taxes are not going up. I don't know. I mean, we got to figure something out. So, you know, something's going to have to come up sooner or later.
But like our tax rate is only based on our obligations to the state. We can't use it for salaries. We can't use it for, it's all basically for
the tax revenue derived from this tax can only be used as a basic contract obligations. I understand that the variable, I think this I understand is probably calculated to pay the fixed charges. The variable charges are paid out of the water rate, so there would be room to increase the taxes to pay a portion of the variable charges that we policy.
Right, so power goes up, the month of water, things like that.
Of course, we letter from guys and just keep them said all power is like the
Again, it's just a lot better than I think. The fixed charges are the portion of the bill that you have to pay to the state, even if you don't get a drop of water. And so philosophically, you know, it probably makes sense to charge everybody or to collect that in the tax rate. The variable charges are really a charge that's a function of how much water you get, and so it makes sense probably to collect that in the water rate.
And our taxes, our tax rate, as we state, remain steady for indefinitely, but are gone down in previous years. But the taxes do go up because we're looking at if the values, we're looking at a 2% increase, new construction. So in most years we're receiving more tax dollars. There was a couple of years in the recession we did not, but most years we will continue to do it. The valley grows until what was received is never increased.
We do in our budget process kind of balance those two. Mike's right that you can use tax money to cover state project costs, but we could stretch a lot further than what we are now. Some agencies, San Bernardino puts just about everything in the tax rate. Metropolitan, on the other hand, pretty much puts everything on the water rate. So Metropolitan in a 5% year, they got to have $2 billion in the bank to make it through a dry year. San Bernardino, they just keep chugging away because they have a stable set. So AVEK has kind of a balance, which I think is a healthy balance because, as Mike said, there are fixed costs that you have to pay every year. And the way we've structured our budget is that we kind of covered that dollar amount with our tax rate. So if we have a bad year, like last year, this year, we don't sell a lot of water, but we have our fixed costs covered with our tax rate. We don't sell a lot of water, but we don't have a lot of variable costs. So it's actually a very good balance. Last year and this year showed that AVEK's approach to this is a very healthy one.
Well, there's also two things, components to that, to add to that. One is our engineer, agency engineer will explain water sales are down for the first 6 months this year compared to last year. And we were down 10% last year overall. Number two, we only collect that money, we get the money, but it's returned back to the county if they don't collect taxes. Okay, if the people default on their property taxes, okay, we don't get paid. The money's returned back to them, and we're expecting. I mean, we don't know. Yeah, prices have gone up, but also there's a lot of land people out there not paying their property taxes right now, which means we're not going to accumulate that money to be used for that. In conjunction with water sales going down because everybody's conserving with a mandatory. We already know they're going to be down. The governor. Martial law is 25%. So we know it's going to be at least 10% more. That money has to be made up somewhere else. So we got to keep that in mind.
When we do get that money, if they don't pay the taxes, it'll come eventually on the silver tax sales. So we may not get it this year, but it's rotating. So people that didn't pay 5 years ago comes up for sale and we receive it at that point.
Not if the governmental agency buys the property, which is being looked at because of the new town and country, which they've included 150,000 new acres of environmental assessments over these people's properties. And there's suspicion a lot of that has to do because the county wants to use it for mitigated land and maybe not have to pay the same taxes. I'm just bringing these things up.
They'd have to.
Okay, so that, I'm sorry,
Last Wednesday, we had a meeting, and I guess what you can say is, we had a meeting that kind of got changed. I mentioned it at the last meeting, so I'm going to bring it up for good clarification this time. The Water Conservation Committee started out with a meeting with the city of Lancaster and the county water district on some issues, and that grew into back to a Little Antelope Valley Water Conservation Coalition. At the last meeting, I think we had 30 to 35 people here for that meeting sitting around the table, and there was a slight possibility that we would have quorum of the committee members here who had canceled. So we felt it was best to just leave that as the coalition of the Water Conservation Committee continues it. So there's a lot of good information, a lot of good stuff going on into it. We don't want to make it look like it's ours, and we don't want to hold it back because we don't have a quorum or something like that happen. So it also allows us to run the agenda outside of around that and some of the things that we're doing. So it makes it very nice working committee. Holly did have them, should not scroll on through there. City of Lancaster came up with a marketing campaign called Saves, and it's AV Saves, and a whole bunch of different marketing deal. One of the deal, smart landscaping, sustainable, manageable. I forgot what all the deals were. Timely was a lot. I had a hard time with the team, but we came out with timely. So we're kind of using that as the regional marketing campaign that came out of there. We have a whole series that the city developed and is giving out for all of us to use. Some of the water districts are going to look about wrapping buses, or they have a community service billboards. They have all sorts of stuff that they can use on that. So they're smart, manageable, attractive, responsible, and timely. So that's what we're coming up with, smart landscaping. The other thing that came out of it, and if the whole board would like to hear it, it was a great presentation, but I'll do very quickly. City of Lancaster, City of Palmdale, and LA County have all approved to join the HERO program. City of Lancaster calls theirs PACE. But basically there's 150,000 items in the program that are energy conserving items, from LED lighting to solar to smart timers to landscaping, water conservation landscaping. And basically you go on site, and we had a couple of actually did it, you put in the value of your home, you come up truthfully with the value of your home, what's your value in the home. They did say they had to put in their social security number, but you're able to borrow against the value of your home 10%. So if your home is $400,000, you can borrow $400,000 into those projects. It does not go against your FICO score, it goes against your taxes. And it goes with the property. So the only drawback that I've seen so far is if you're ready to sell your house, and all of a sudden you have a $1,000, $2,000 tax bill for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years paying that back. You know, is it going to be as marketable? But on the other hand, you're able to pass that cost on. Depending upon what conservation things you have, it's a 5-year, 10-year, or 20-year payback cycle. So if you're buying a washing machine, you're not going to get 20 years out of it. But a way of saying, instead of going to rebates, maybe here's a way to apply against your property and assess it, and then it's also basically currently tax deductible in there too. So it's kind of a lot of wins to it, and a few little minor ones. There's some problems with it. I don't think major. So they made a presentation on that, and like I said, it's been approved by those 2 cities and the county. And you'll have permission from them, you just get on the website and do it, and then it has a list of approved contractors to complete the project. So the contractors are likely to, we have 2 or 3 landscape contractors who work through the process right now to get on that list, so they're going through the online training and what it takes to get on that list. So that was a pretty neat presentation, and that's how the city of Lancaster are calling funding solar on roofs for all homeowners, was buy that way, not have to lease it, and it was going to so that would be, I don't know, that would take over the lease if I bought a new property, or take over the taxes. That would be a fun, issue in there. But that was the 2 main things that came out of there. A lot of other ideas coming out of that. We'll continue to work on it. So that's basically this model. I'm sure it has something else to add.
One is a chemist position. We have 3 people in our lab now. We have a lab director, and we have two lab technicians. One is kind of at a lower level or an entry level almost, and then one is a director level. We didn't really have anything in between. We didn't really have anybody that could act for the director when the lab director when they were out. The lab gets a lot of, if you're here on a weekday, you'll see a lot of folks coming in. A lot of people use the lab as kind of a service to the community, although we do cover our costs, but there's a lot of activity in the lab. And so what we're asking is, we've got an existing classification. We just want to put an employee in that position, but we looked at the salary rate and we decided it would probably more appropriate to do a salary range of 45. And so in the package, we're recommending that the board allow the filling of a chemist position with an existing employee and delete 1 senior lab technician position. So,
And what cost will that be in years to come?
immediate, there's no cost immediately, but what it does do is the chemist has some more steps so that it actually gives an employee an opportunity to, to have a couple steps up from the lab technician.
So this right here, 45, step 1, right? Is that what we're looking at?
I can't remember if it's the same, is it?
Yeah, they would be moved, actually would be increased 5%. They go up to the next step.
So step 2.
Right.
So it'll be 27,000?
So, yeah, they go up to the next step in level 45.
That 27 is
Right.
per paycheck.
So does it
So
delete?
they would be at step 3.
Why do they jump so fast? I mean, explain to us, to the ones we're...
That's a recommendation coming from the lab director,
But that doesn't...
saying that this particular person is, able to fill this role, and that he recommended that to the general manager.
We have a position as a lab technician, somebody that met all the qualifications for lab technician. To work up to the chemist position, you have to have so much experience in the areas. The person that the next position now has the experience of all the qualifications to be a chemist. So we helped them move up when they helped us. Now they're in a position where they can more supervisory responsibilities. Staff is recommending that that's what we need. So right now we have this position now moving to help supervisory work position rather than this lab technician.
So basically, it's
So they deserve more pay to do that. The only thing I don't understand is, I thought in our discussion, they're pretty much already at the top of their scale as a lab tech. And then as they move into the chemist position, we need to put them at least 5% ahead.
Right.
The new position from where they're at now, and then they'll go up some steps.
So
So
it's
like-
the same person?
it's simple.
It's not, we're not laying it out.
Not letting anybody
No.
know. We're upward mobility to our lab deck that's way up on its qualifications when it comes. Is that?
Precisely.
Are we making money on our lab charges?
We just looked at the most recent, what we're charging in comparison to others. We probably can make an adjustment, so sometime in the future we can talk to them.
You see, probably, or it looks like it could.
We probably should make an adjustment based on what others charge, for that
Okay.
similar service.
Who's others? Who's others? You have the area?
They're relative to Southern California.
Yeah, see, the thing is, they're gonna nail it or they're gonna write it. I mean, if there's a convenience here, there should be something there. Do we do water quality tests here too?
We do basic bacteriological testing, is what we do for the most part. But yeah, I mean, we can work with our customers to do other types of testing, help them out with that. So,
One thing that concerns me a little bit while we're talking about this increased cost for hiring person to the lab tech, that would be increase of 5% now.
this is 5% for the next fiscal year.
And we're doing the inner program. They're all good programs, but somebody's got to pay it. The White Fence Farms, Roseman, Port Sale, there's no free lunches. And as we said earlier, our water sales are down, and our chemists, we used to have one chemist, and we're selling less water now than we ever have. And we had 2 in the lab. Now we have 3 in the lab. And just every place around AVEK, our staff has increased. And I know things are a little more complex in the treatment end of it, but our staff has increased and our water sales have decreased. And can we fault any of these programs? No, they're all good. But asking somebody to pick up that program is not good. They have nothing to say about it. Only this board up here, we're the ones that look at it. We've got to make that decision whether that's wise expenditure of the public's money. But having 3 in the lab, I remember there was 1 in the lab, and we used to review those rates, and we would look at lab rates, and we would look at several different labs. I don't remember seeing that in years. Maybe it's done internally, but it hasn't been done on a committee or board level, to my knowledge.
No,
And probably,
it has. We did that.
About 2010 or 2011,
And we did it.
well,
when Justin took over.
I don't know if it came to the board or not.
It did.
But anyway, it needs to be looked at, and past what was looked at, what I remember, long before that, the lab was losing.
Classification that was appropriate for just recharge. Now we have extraction, we have disinfection, so it's a much bigger, we wanted to step this up. We didn't want to start classification right off the bat being all of these things, so we kind of stepped it up. So now we're at that point where the water bank supervisor is actually doing disinfection, pumping, extraction, recharge, the whole package. And so what we're doing is kind of making this comparable to a plant superintendent. It's just like we envisioned that ultimately the water bank out there is going to be just like another treatment plant for us. And that's where we're at this point. This year kind of showed that we need extraction, disinfection, and so forth. So we're asking the board to bump that to the salary level that's appropriate with the same as the plant operators. So it goes from 46 where we had it because we were kind of ramping up to 48.
In which step?
It'll be at the same step, no impact over the next fiscal year.
That's where I misspoke on the chemist because that's what I was thinking of.
Chemist is going to be changed, but not
This
this
one does
position.
not increase the budget, but it does give that individual who's in that slot more. Oroville is looking a little bit at 50% historical average, but San Luis is the same as it was last time I reported, 66% of historical average. It is going down, but it's still at 66% of historical average. Here's the reservoir conditions. Again, the red line is historical average, and the blue is actually capacity. So
And if there was any likelihood of having a repeat of 2015 or 2016, these things are pretty much empty.
well,
I'm not a completely empty building.
Oroville and San Luis, They drew those down in 14 to basically minimum pools. So they're projecting to do about the same thing. So it's going to be a repeat of last year. They'll draw Oroville down to 900,000 or so, and they'll open the river valve. So we'll be about in the position we were at the end of 14.
So they're not going to still allocate all that water to fish. I mean, something's going to happen. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the issues. That there's been a lot of discussion now because the project isn't getting any water out of Oroville. We're not getting any supply out of Oroville at all. You don't get dry years. The only thing that gets any water out of Oroville is upstream water right holders and the fish. And so that's the argument, is that they're saying, hey, we're running out of water altogether, so we don't even have enough for fish. And they're actually starting to re-examine Shasta's operations because they don't even have enough for the fish. They've released so much for fish, they're not going to have enough in the fall. So yeah, these, I show you the Oroville numbers, but it's really irrelevant to us. We're not going to get anything out of it.
In the past, we discussed accepting our allocation now and banking the water.
Yes.
Where are we at with that?
I wouldn't recommend that right now. What you have water in surface storage in Oroville. We plan to carry some water over. We have water in the ground here locally. So if next year is dry, you're going to have water locally that you can tap into. So adding to that local storage is going to help you. Having surface storage that you have some flexibility with is going to help you broaden your portfolio.
What if they decide that they don't have the 20% allocation for us?
They could do.
Next month or two, and we
They-
have taken it.
They could do that. It's a very slim chance. I mean, the governor's done some crazy stuff before. But there are a lot of agencies that are relying on that 20%. And they already really have it in
What
storage.
if it's not there? No, they really have it.
Oh, yeah, no, it's,
Really
in
have it.
fact, it's really there. So that's the water that the 20% is based on. Even if we stop pumping in the Delta today, it wouldn't undermine the 20%. I mean, I think you have to get a little bit in the fall, like November, December, but they're not anticipating any. I mean, right now they're pumping, I think, at 1,500 CFS, which means 750 CFS for the State Water Project, which is not very much. So it's going to be minimal pumping until fall. So the 20% is already insane. So yeah, something could happen, but I don't know who you would give it to because it's already in San Luis. You may decide to give it to another agency or something like that, but it's in the State Water Project storage. So it's, yeah, I think you're well positioned going into next year. You're going to have water. You're going to have a little bit of water carried over into San Luis, and you're going to have water locally. You're going to be able to, and you have pumping and extraction capability for extracting them next year. So I think you're well positioned for next year.
Okay, so and then if we have really wet year, when it boosts up to 70%, or just 67%, we'd have 20% on top of that, which means we can take all that, put that in the ground, correct?
That's why I show you these charts every month, is we're going to keep an eye on this, and if it starts raining in the fall, we may start recharging right off the bat. I think that's when you're going to want to say, hey, let's get the water out of San Luis. But the fact that San Luis is where it is, you have some time, it's going to take a couple of months, several months probably, to refill San Luis. So you're going to have some time to get water to our service area. So in October, November, that's when we'll be looking at this going, okay, is it time to start taking water locally? Right now, I would recommend moving it, but because basically you don't want to be recharging water here locally while everybody's grass is down. So, so I think if you leave it in San Luis for now, we keep the board informed, and as you get into October, November, that's when we will pull the trigger and say, let's get recharged.
I had a couple comments.
We ended up the water year last year at, a little below, well, it was about $1 million. It was about 900,000 at the end of the water year last year. So it's a little better than it was last year. And here's San Luis. You see the dark blue is the state project share. So again, we're 66% average. Operations, Fort Hill is at 20 MPD now. Roseman and Eastside are both operating. Roseman's at 5.5, Eastside's at 3. We do have a little water going through the Palmdale connection. Our well on 96th Street is continuing to pump, and our extractions at the west side bank are 11 MGD. And that is actually driven by demand. So you notice it's been 13.5, now it's down to 11. So that's just, we have it available if they're not taking it to the school.
What's interesting about that, 96, East Side treatment plant, is that what that is?
The bottom one is the west side bank. That's the
Where's, okay, East Side.
east side hasn't. Yeah.
Now, last year, that wasn't, we were running that last year, weren't we? The county was mostly pumping?
We were running it except in the winter.
Huh?
We ran the east side plant except in the winter time. Winter time we did. The summertime.
So the 3 MG, so we basically.
It's running 3 right now.
No, but last year, same thing?
About the same.
Okay.
Anything else operational?
Dan, did you say that the west side extractions dropped from 13
I think the last time I reported is 13.5. And that's driven by our largest customers.
So it means
Yes, I think that's.
Is demand dropping, or are customers pumping their wells?
I think actually demand's dropping. I think from what we're hearing.
They're gonna get fined $10,000 a day if they don't make that 25% reduction.
Starting with
Right, starting, they started, it's under bills, they got the bills before last year. Under bills.
So in February?
No, it's June, July, right? We're gonna start July, isn't it June, July, the 2 months?
My understanding is June 1st.
What?
June 1st is when they started the.
Yeah, to how long?
So the governor says otherwise.
Oh, I thought it was 2 weeks, so it's longer than that. They compared to last year.
But the phone call is they have to report monthly, so how do you come up with a daily fee?
No, the governor,
The
governor's.
governor's doing a daily fee, but they only have to report monthly to the
I-
state. So how do you come up with a daily fee when you have a monthly reporting system? Gotta do it.
He knows where to get it. And believe me, he knows how to spend it too.
Meeting with them, the finance committee, kind of talked to the Met representatives. They're planning to have something for information for their board in July and then action in August. So we did have those bullet points that we discussed, and we'll be getting more like letter of intent kind of documents together. We did have a meeting with Mojave Water Agency last week, and they're interested in banking in our service area also.
Mojave Water,
Yeah, they are.
the Mojave River, and all the capacity they've got, that's good news.
Yeah, no, it's, we have people lining up. And we have an East Branch contractor coming up. We've got a kind of a coalition of East Branch state project contractors where we're talking about Delta participation and exchanges between contractors. And they're also interested in doing some arrangements with us. So we're working on that. And this is a striped bass that was caught in the Delta. I think I was in Sacramento and I had a deputy director say that the Delta is crashing, and you'll hear this all the time at conferences. The Delta is not crashing. It's just getting taken over by bass. They actually, this is striped bass, largemouth bass are huge. They actually had a Bassmaster Elite tournament in Sacramento on ESPN. So, well, that's the thing is, if you look at the numbers from the 80s to now, there were a lot more native. There were like 14, 20% were native, and now it's down to like 5 and 8%. But there's plenty of bass, so it isn't like it's not a good fishery. There's lots of big